Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to your favorite podcast, Sports and Other Things of the Sort. I'm Lucas Stein. Thank you for joining me here again. As I told you last week, today is a mini-series, the first episode of a show that I have been technically working on for 2 years. Originally, when I wanted to start a podcast, it was just going to be episodes of this mini-series. But as my knowledge for sports has grown and my reach towards all the other sports has grown, I decided that it would be best to keep this more as a mini-series and have the podcast be about sports and other things of the sorts. So before we go any further, I'd like to give you a friendly reminder, just respect each other, especially online. It's super easy to read something out of context or with the wrong tone. Yes, a lot of the comments you'll see online are with the tone you're reading it with, that very sarcastic, I know more than you tone. But just make sure you're watching it. Just make sure you're respecting people for their opinions. Because some people won't respect you for yours, and that's totally okay. Just say, hey, you know what? That's fine. And you don't ever have to talk about them or talk to them again. That's a beautiful thing of the internet. You can talk to anybody you want and block the people you don't want to talk to. So remember, just respect each other and don't be afraid to share your opinions. Again, just respect each other. So now, without further ado, let's jump right into the first episode of Make a Case. Make a Case. Welcome to Make a Case. This is a mini-series where I will do just that. Make a case for baseball players that are right there, just that close to being in the Hall of Fame, and convince you why they should be. I'll give a general summary of their career and their stats, and then give comparisons, because I feel like that's where a lot of these cases lie. It's make or break with these comparisons, especially on totals throughout the year. So the first guy we're looking at for this mini-series is Victor Martinez. Victor Martinez was in the MLB from 2002 to 2018. He played 7.5 years with the Cleveland Indians, 1.5 years with the Boston Red Sox, and 7 years with the Detroit Tigers. Now, before I go any further, there's a website I use to find these players' stats on. It's called Baseball Reference, and on this website, it has these, I'm not sure, I guess they call them Hall of Fame meters. What they are, they add up stats, they give a scoring system based on how you do with those stats, and then they combine it into one score, kind of like WAR, I guess. And if you look at these Hall of Fame meters for Victor, he does not make the cut. The first test is the black ink test. The way you accumulate points is based on if you led the league in certain categories. You get 1 point for leading the league in games, at-bats, or triples, 2 points if you lead in doubles, walks, or stolen bases, 3 if you lead in runs scored, hits, or slugging percentage, and 4 for leading in home runs, RBIs, or batting average. So I'm going to kind of deter my argument if you put a lot of stock into these tests, because Victor Martinez scores 0 points on this test. That's not good, in theory. But on the gray ink test, which is the same scoring system as the black ink test, but doesn't matter if you led the league, just if you were top 10, on that test, he amassed a 54. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the average is 100? But I could be wrong on that. The other tests down there give points based on how well your stats were. Telling you all the things would be very hard because there are over 20 stats that both of them cover, but he is also below average on the other 2 tests down there. Now you may think, you just spent half of the segment bashing the player you're trying to get in the Hall of Fame. How are you supposed to help him? I'm getting there. The first thing I want to look at is I'm going to give you 2 different players. 2 different stat lines from a year. I want you to pick which player you would rather have. This is just hitting wise. Player A had a 199 average with 38 home runs, 77 RBIs, and struck out a total of 213 times in that season, and had an All-Star appearance. Player B had a 316 average, 16 home runs, 93 RBIs, and struck out just 73 times with no All-Star appearance. I'll give you a second to pick. If you said you would take player B, you picked Victor Martinez in the 2006 season at 27 years old. The player you turned down was Joey Gallo in the 2021 season at 27 years old. That's my first case. He's better comparatively to some of the most famous All-Stars. If I did the comparison for when they were both 25, when they were both All-Stars, it would tip more towards Victor in that season. Granted, Gallo only played 70 games, but still. Now, the All-Star thing is a little confusing to me, and this is a little side rant. This will probably be an episode. Mid-season All-Star games are a horrible way to measure if a player is an All-Star. I don't know about you, but if I looked at player B without telling you he wasn't an All-Star, I would have said he was an All-Star, but he was not. So somewhere after the All-Star break, Victor Martinez caught fire. That's why I don't like the mid-season All-Star game. Because it just shows what you were for half the season, not the full scale of the season. So I think it discredits guys. There have been guys that won an MVP without being an All-Star that aren't in the Hall of Fame. So the All-Star game in MLB is just a little confusing, but that's a rant and an episode for another day. My next case for Victor Martinez is the fact that he was a consistent contributor and an All-Star for every team he played for. He was an All-Star at least once for every team he played for. His first appearance came in 2004, where by the end of the year, he would be 21st in AL MVP voting and tied for a Silver Slugger with the one and only Pudge Rodriguez. He also beat guys like Jorge Posada in that race as well. The next year, with no All-Star appearance or any other award, he was 18th in AL MVP voting. In 2007, he was an All-Star and 7th in AL MVP voting. Then one final time for the Indians, he'd make an All-Star appearance and be 21st in AL MVP voting again. In 7.5 years with the Indians, he received 3 All-Star appearances, a Silver Slugger, and plenty of MVP votes. The next season, his first and last full season with the Boston Red Sox, he was an All-Star. After that, he was traded to the Detroit Tigers, where he was 16th in MVP voting the very next season. Then, after not playing in 2012, he came back with a pretty solid season, but not super big numbers in other categories. However, 2014, his best year arguably, he was an All-Star, won a Silver Slugger, and he was second in MVP voting, losing only to Mike Trout. He also won the Edgar Martinez Award for Outstanding DH and Tiger of the Year Award, all while being 35 years old. After that, he didn't have any more All-Star appearances, no more awards or anything like that. But the thing is, in the years he wasn't winning an award or appearing in an All-Star game, he was always contributing for his team and in a meaningful way at that. He was never an outlandishly powerful guy, but he would put the ball in play on a consistent basis. He never struck out over 90 times in a season, which to me is incredible, and he was a 300 hitter 8 times, a 330 hitter 3 times. His worst seasons, batting average-wise, came with a 245, 251, and 255. Those averages were 3 of his last 4 years of his career, but those are still saying that he'll probably get a hit 1 every 4 at-bats, which is pretty good. Other than those seasons, his average never in his career dipped below a 275. That is impressive to say the least. In his career, he had a 295 average, fantastic, 2,153 hits, fantastic, 246 home runs, and 1,178 RBIs. So where does this rank him with other Hall of Famers? If you want a little more evidence, he has more career hits than Yogi Berra, Harmon Killebrew, and Johnny Bench. He also has more career home runs than Roberto Clemente and Paul the Igniter Molitor, and more career RBIs than Craig Biggio, Tony Gwynn, and Roberto Alomar. What I see in Victor Martinez's stats alone is a guy that was reliable. He wasn't going to hit triples, he was barely going to hit doubles, but he would get on. He wouldn't strike out much. He would get on or put the ball in play. The thing in baseball, when you put the ball in play, you have a chance. If you strike out, you got no chance. Except to drop third strike, which rarely ever goes the runner's way anyway. And especially for a guy like Victor Martinez, yeah, right. Victor Martinez was consistent. Again, only 3 seasons was he under 275. Other than that, you can see in his career numbers, he's a 295 hitter with 2,100 hits, 1,100 RBIs. In my eyes, those are the stats of a Hall of Famer, and I gave you the comparisons to show you that they're stats of a Hall of Famer. I think the biggest downside to Victor Martinez is, number one, not super high home run number. As the game has shifted more towards a home run centric game, it leaves guys like Victor Martinez, who weren't crushing 40 home runs a season, kind of by the wayside. And it's unfortunate because I think this is me being genuine. I wouldn't do this episode if I didn't believe it. This is me being genuine. I think he should be a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's first ballot. I wouldn't say that. Obviously, he's not. But this is a career that I think most people would love to have. He was a 5-time All-Star, I think 3-time Silver Slugger, maybe 2. I didn't write that down. And he was loved by the cities he played in. That's a career that I would love that. So that is my case for Victor Martinez. Well, that'll do it for the first episode of Make a Case. I hope I get a few comments giving their case as to why or why not Victor Martinez should be in the Hall of Fame. We can have a little back and forth banter has a negative connotation. We can have a back and forth conversation about it. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the internet is the conversations that we can have when we base it on respect. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. Next week, we might do the episode about MLB All-Star appearances. Or we might do something else, because I haven't written anything yet. Yes, I script my episodes, because if I don't, I ramble, just like I'm doing for this outro. So thank you for listening to the first episode of Make a Case. And we hope to see you back here next Friday. See ya.